Welcome to season 2 of My Babysitter's a Vampire. We have changed the pictures around. Our main characters are looking nice, looking stellar. We have grown up. We've got a budget. Everybody looks like they're slaying. Slaying, 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 slaying. And we have a new character down here. Well, new characters. It's going to be referred to as one entity, but we'll only really get to know one of them mostly. This is the Vampire Council. I talked about them in the 3rd episode of season 1. We are going to learn a lot more about them this season. They are basically kind of like the ones who keep vampires in control and make sure that everything that any vampire is doing is regulated with rules, which we'll hear about throughout the season. We'll meet them in the 1st episode. They're pretty prominent this season, so I gave them their own picture. Let's move into the plot of the 1st episode of season 2, Welcome Back, Dusker. Wonderful play on words. This might be one of my favorite titles. We start the episode with seeing 2 vampires standing outside Ethan's bedroom. They're having a conversation, and it seems like they're waiting for somebody. One vampire doesn't think the person will show up. The other vampire knows that they will. But while they're talking, a green mist flies in behind them, possessing one of the vampires to attack the other. The sound of the fight signals Ethan to look out his window, but he doesn't really see anything. When his phone rings, who's calling him, you may ask? Erica. Erica is calling Ethan because she heard a rumor that Dirk Battison from Dusk, he played Jake Ward, the Edward version of their Twilight, is coming to Whitechapel, and she is so excited. Ethan reveals that it's simply not true. It was a rumor he made up to get Sarah to come back into town. Now, here's the thing. This season picks up the school year after season 1 ended. So at this point, these 3 are sophomores and these 2 are seniors. All summer, no one has heard from Sarah. She basically went MIA after coming full vampire to kind of accept the life that she has, which is really freaking Ethan out because he's really concerned about her because, in case you forgot, which I don't know how you would, he has a crush on her and he wants to make sure he's okay. Ethan basically tells Erica that he hasn't heard from Sarah and he wants to know that she's coming back. And Erica tells him that it was really rude and mean of him to make up this rumor and not follow through, and that if Sarah wants to come back into town, she will, and she will reach out when she's ready. Erica hangs up the phone, and Ethan's dad comes in asking if he has heard from Sarah yet. He has not. They want to know if she's going to be able to babysit this school year. Ethan doesn't know. And as soon as he leaves, Miss Sarah appears. First appearance of the season. Slay. She greets Ethan, and she basically tells him that she's back in town. He asks if she's staying. She doesn't really have an answer for it, which is so weird because, yes, she does fucking stay, but whatever. Ethan then tries to apologize for the events that happened at the school dance and basically say that he's not giving up on finding a cure for her vampire curse, to which Sarah tells him that it's okay. She's accepted her life as a vampire. This is just her reality. Besides, nothing is normal in Whitechapel, then tells him he needs to get some sleep and she'll see him at school the next day. The next day, Ethan is talking to Benny at his locker about how weird Sarah is acting. She's too accepting of her new vampire life, especially since we spent the whole movie and 1st season denying that she was going to be a vampire and searching for a cure. Benny tries to tell him that he shouldn't be concerned. It's fine. Sarah knows what she's doing and she's okay. Sarah and Erica approach them at their locker, and Benny, who conjured up a chick while talking to Ethan to practice magic, shows him to the girls, and Sarah makes a joke about it being a great snack later. The boys kind of look at her very weirdly, and she's like, I didn't know you guys were so, like, uptight. And Ethan is like, well, I didn't know you were so funny. So this whole Sarah accepting herself as a vampire thing is gonna be a little tiff for Ethan because he just can't let it go. Let it go, Ethan. She said it was fine. Erica and Sarah go on their way to their lockers, to class, and Erica informs Sarah that Sarah has to meet with the council for a full vampire initiation. She basically tells her that the council has been better since Jesse has left, and they just want to make sure that she has a community of vampires to rely on. Sarah, forever a leader and not a follower, rejects the invitation and discards the letter that she is given. She misses the trash can when she throws it away, and this catches the attention of their new vice principal, Mr. Stern, who tells her that she needs to throw the trash away. Sarah immediately gets angry and throws that man in the trash can. Now, here's the thing about full vampires. They have a much harder time controlling their anger urges than fledglings do. So before, when Sarah could probably just regulate her emotions and like figure out another way to deal with it, now she gets angry before she thinks. To which she immediately regrets, because now she's going to get in trouble for throwing this man in a trash can. But luckily, Erica pulls Benny aside and gets him to do like this reversal mind spell so he forgets that it ever happened, and all's well that ends well. Later in the day, Sarah is going to class, and she is confronted by 2 vampires from the Vampire Council who basically tell her that she needs to give up Ethan so that they can take him into the Vampire Council. They actually call him her boyfriend, to which she denies, but we know how you feel, girl, and says that they need to stay away from him and that whatever they want from him is simply not true. What they want is to bring Ethan to the council so he can be put on trial for the seemingly unfortunate murder of a bunch of vampires. Instead of bringing Ethan in, they bring in Sarah to go on trial for him because they think she is being a traitor by defending Ethan. At this point, Dirk Battison actually shows up to the high school, and he runs into Ethan and Benny, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Well, my career is flopping, and my publicist saw this, so they sent me to Whitechapel so I could make some noise, because when I did the Hamlet for dogs, it wasn't a big deal." Erica immediately gets excited and steals him away and is like, "How dare you lie to me, Ethan? He's really here." At this point, Ethan is left alone in the hallway, and the 2 vampires who took Sarah earlier come to find him and tell him that they need to take him to the council. And he's like, "No, no, no, I'm not going to do that." And they're like, "Listen, dude, we know you're guilty of all of these vampire murders that have been happening. So we need to take you in so we can figure out why you're doing this and we can get rid of you." While being confronted by the 2 vampires, the green mist comes in and Ethan watches as it possesses one and attacks the other. Yet again, not a good look for him because he is the only one who saw this happen, and now both of these vampires are dead after they were sent after him. So obviously they're still going to think that Mr. E is slaying vampires when he is not slaying vampires. This sends him to go into hiding in one of the lockers at school. He gets Benny and Sarah to meet him at the locker, and he's basically explaining how he hasn't been murdering people. It's this green mist that smells like evil, and at first Benny is kind of reluctant, but once Ethan says the mist smells like evil, it gives Benny an idea. So he goes and finds these 3 jars that smell like different things and has Ethan smell them to see whatever smell relates closest to the green mist. Ethan smells one jar and he says, "This smells exactly like this. It was sulfur." Benny then reveals that the mist going around killing vampires is a spell called the Breath of Death. And the Breath of Death it's basically a spell that can be casted by a powerful wizard, spellcaster, whatever you want to call it, that targets a certain someone or a certain group of people like vampires and won't stop until it kills all of them. And the only way that they can stop it is by luring it into a little thing that can keep it enclosed forever with the right symbols written on it. They use this little can that Ethan has in his room. They put the symbols on it, and they use some of Rory's scent as a little ploy to get it there. While they're doing this, Erica calls them and tells them that they need to go to the Vampire Council building because Sarah is on trial for defending Ethan. Sarah is doing this so that she can defend their honor and keep them safe so that the Vampire Council doesn't kill them. But while she's like repping for them, they show up and she's like, "No, you need to leave. We're saving you." And Ethan's like, "No, we're saving you." And Ethan tells the council that it's not him who's doing the killing, it's this green mist. And in a room full of vampires, it is very dangerous. Anastasia, this main one, the girl, doesn't really believe him and sets him to be executed. But while she's talking, the vampire next to her gets possessed by the green mist and starts attacking Anastasia. However, the little can with Rory's scent is able to lure it when Benny holds it close enough to the face of the vampire who has the mist in him right now. Unfortunately, he gets knocked over when the mist comes out of the body, and it completely destroys the scent and loses everything. So the mist sets an attack on Ethan, while Benny has to re-prepare the can to hold the green mist. It possesses Ethan and he begins to attack Sarah, but luckily Benny had the can ready and is able to get the green mist out of him. The Vampire Council then reluctantly let Ethan, Sarah, Benny, Erica, and Rory go and say that they are fine for now, but they're going to keep an eye on them. They then end the episode by us seeing a news report of Dirk Battison talking about how vampires are real and how he has proof because of his vampire girlfriend, who is Erica, and he shows all of these pictures, but it's literally just him in the pictures, so now the whole world thinks he's insane. Good job, Whitechapel gang. You made a celebrity look crazy. Also, I should mention this. The gang talks about the spell, and Benny mentions that the Breath of Death is something far out of his league, and that means another powerful presence is in Whitechapel, one that they haven't felt before. This presence will come up. He will be important as time goes on, so just keep an eye out for him. Episode 2 is called Say You'll Be Maztak. This one is an interesting episode. I'm sure it sent the girlies wild when it first came out, so let's talk about it real quick. We start the episode with Mr. G gardening on school grounds. He's digging, and he ends up digging up a crystal skull. And he is like, "Slay, this is so cool, I'm going to keep it." He takes it inside to his classroom, and when he sets it down on the table, a beam of light goes through it, and he gets knocked out. When he wakes up, this woman, Lucia, is standing over him. Mr. G's like, "Oh, I took a little nappy nap. I guess you're the sub to replace me because I passed out. Anyways, peace." So he leaves, and then Rory, Benny, and Ethan walk into their class, and they're like, "Yeah, slay sub, we're gonna mess with them, we're not gonna do our work." But stop when they realize she is a hot woman. They're in class, not really paying attention. Lucia is rambling about the sun god, praising the sun king, and all of this stuff. And Sarah and Erica come to talk to Ethan because Erica wants more little mini stakes, which are pencils, to stake a vampire guy who she went on a date with, but he stood her up. As they're talking to Ethan, Lucia comes over and tells them that female warriors are not needed and they need to leave, effectively kicking them out and pissing the girlies off because they are strong, independent women. This also leads Sarah to thinking that things are weird because she did ask Ethan what the sub was talking about, and he's like, "I have no idea. Like, I didn't even know she was talking. She's just so hot." At the end of class, Lucia reveals that they all need to make an altar for the Sun King so that he can come back to life and they can be rejoined. She sends them out to go find like animal hearts and like wildflowers and gold, and everyone in the class is eager. All the men are eager to get on Lucia's good side. They leave class and run into Sarah and Erica again, who are like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "We're building an altar, praise the Sun King." And Sarah's like, "Don't you think it's a little weird that your weird sub is giving you weird homework?" And this kind of snaps Ethan out of it, and he's like, "Yeah, now you mention it, it is a little weird." As soon as Sarah tells them that she thinks it's weird, Lucia walks by, her eyes flicker like this orangish gold. The boys' eyes flicker, and they're all like, "Praise the Sun King," and go on their way to help finish the altar. Benny and Rory are pretty successful in finding stuff, but Ethan is not so much worried about it. But when he returns to class later, he sees that the altar is almost finished. When Lucia confronts him about not bringing many offerings to the altar, she touches him and he gets a vision of the world on fire, and that again snaps him out of how weird things are going. But then she flashes her little eyes at him again, and suddenly he forgets all about that vision. He does not care anymore. Sarah then comes to the class to visit Ethan again and see what's going on, and realizes that he is yet again acting strange. So she decides that it's up to her and Erica to save the day this time. There's no Ethan's brains, there's no Benny's magic. It is all female vampire power. They are about to slay so hard, slay lost all meaning. I'm not even kidding. They also realize while standing in the hallway, because they're watching a bunch of shirtless teenage boys walk around being like, "Praise the Sun King, praise the Sun King, praise the Sun King," that the sun is getting hotter, which is kind of dangerous because the sun irritates them. So they have to figure out how to stop the sun from getting hotter and stop Lucia from coming into power. They're like, "We need to think like Ethan and Benny." When that fails, they go to Evelyn, and Evelyn brings them this book with a history of the sun god, and they find out that Lucia and the sun god were separated by the moon goddess. And they're like, okay, well, who's going to call her up? Why don't you just call Taylor up? Well, they can't. But Jane reveals that this geek recently bought moon rocks, and that can be used to destroy Lucia. It comes the time for the sacrifice to happen for the Sun King. Lucia needs one, and while all the boys are like, pick me, pick me, pick me, she picks rorriM. However, when they put rorriM on the altar to get sacrificed to the sun god, he gets burnt by the sun coming through the sun crystal, and she realizes that his soul is impure because he's a vampire. She then goes to find her next candidate in Ethan because he has like a true heart or whatever. Ethan is chosen, and at first he's excited, but when he lays down on the altar and is touched by Lucia, he gets a vision of the world burning and him dying, and immediately he's like, oh fuck no, get me off this table, get me off this table now. Luckily, before anything can happen, Sarah and Erica are already kicking their plan into action. They throw black paint on the windows of the classroom that the altar is in, blocking out the sunlight. And then they walk into the room where they're like, yes, we're so good. Slow motion hair flip. They're like, yes, we are eating and we're here to kick Lucia's ass.
Girls are here with an updated forecast.
When all the boys try to stop her, they are able to fight all of them off because they're all scrawny. And they walk up to Lucia, who tries to fight them back, and hit her forehead with the moon rocks, effectively taking power away from her for a little bit, which leads Sarah to grab the skull, the crystal skull, and smash it on the floor, taking Lucia out and saving the world. Can you say slay? Because I can say slay, 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 slay. And that is the end of episode 2, Say You'll Be Maztak. Episode 3 of season 2 is called Fanged and Furious. In this episode, Mr. E has gotten his learner's permit. Everybody rejoiced because that means he gets to learn how to drive with a licensed driver. And who's the licensed driver? Sarah. The only problem is he doesn't have a car. So he and Benny set out to go to this garage sale that their classmate Malcolm is hosting in hopes of finding a car, which they do. It is a clunker. It is a piece of shit. It's old. It's rusted. It looks disgusting, but it's for $75. Ethan sits in the driver's seat of the car, and when he touches the wheel, he gets a vision. He sees a burning building, and then when he comes out of the vision, he looks in the rearview mirror, and he sees this man laughing at him. This, for some reason, out of everything he's ever faced in his life, scares the fuck out of Ethan, and he's like, I do not want this car, and ends up leaving the garage sale. At Ethan's house, he tells Benny about the vision he saw and how he was super freaked out of the car. But while they're having this conversation, there is a knockety-knock on his door, and that knockety-knock is Miss Sarah. And she's like, what did you want to tell me? And Ethan's like, I got my permit. Ooh. And Sarah's like, yes, slay. So you're going to take me for a ride? And Ethan's like, I don't have a car. She's like, I know it's old and clunky, but everyone has to start somewhere. She points towards the street, and we see the car, which is here if I didn't show it off yet, that Ethan saw at the yard sale sitting in his street. And Ethan's like, yeah, that's not my car. I promise you. And she's like, no, it's fine. Let's go for a ride. She drags Ethan out to the car, and Ethan's very nervous. He doesn't want to get in. He doesn't want to drive it. He tries to feign like he doesn't have keys, but they're in the ignition, and Sarah goes, a rookie mistake. You left your car parked on the street with your keys in the ignition? Say, stupid person mistake. You want your car fucking stolen. They go for a drive, and Ethan's very nervous because of what's going on with the car. You know, there's a ghosty ghost in the back seat. And Miss Sarah's trying to keep her cool because, honestly, I would be laughing my ass off. She is a saint. And while they're driving, they pass Malcolm's house, and Malcolm yells at Ethan, give me my car back. You stole my car, blah, 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 blah. And Sarah's like, you stole this car? And Ethan's like, no, it showed up at my house. I don't want any part of it. And while trying to stop the car takes over driving and ends up chasing Malcolm down to his house where it hits him. Sarah freaks out because Ethan just hit somebody. Ethan freaks out because Ethan just hit somebody. And Sarah has to leave because when the car hit Malcolm, a little bit of blood came out and she's like, I can't be a part of this. He smells too good, and leaves. And Ethan's like, I'm leaving it here. I'm so sorry. Please don't blame me for this. But it's already too late. Ethan now has a reputation of hitting people. So sorry that's on you when you have a permit. No one's ever going to ask you to drive anywhere. It's not like you drive for the rest of the season anyways. At school, everybody in the hallway is like, oh, don't hit me. Oh, oh, oh. Dodging Ethan and making jokes about how he hit somebody. And Ethan's like, I didn't fucking hit him. The car did it himself. Why does nobody in Whitechapel believe him?
Beats fucking me, because it seems like supernatural things happen all the fucking time, and none of them bat a fucking eye.
I'm not going in a rant. While at school, the car shows up there, and during this break period for this football player, he sees Ethan's car and he goes over to check it because I think it had started without anyone in it. And while he was checking it, the hood opened and attacked him. And this is my favorite scene, so I'm gonna reenact it. This is my favorite scene from this episode. Hey Ethan, did you get the math homework done? No, not yet. Okay, I was just wondering. By the way, did you hit this guy with your car? Thank you, King Rory. King Rory calls Ethan to ask about his car and basically says that Ethan is getting blamed yet again for another incident with his car. He wasn't in the car. He wasn't near the car. But because it is his car, it is his fault. And the guy's like screaming like, this is Ethan Morgan's fault. I want his permit taken away. And Ethan's like, dude, fuck. I don't know what to do. This is not my goddamn car. So he, Benny, Sarah, Erica, and Rory all go out to investigate the car, and they notice that it looks way better than it did when Ethan first saw it. I showed you the picture of the clunker. I didn't find a new picture, but the paint is spruced up, it's not rusted, and it's not dented. And they're like, dude, what the fuck? How did this get like this? This is a car. And while they're standing there, these three begin to smell blood, and they're like, smells good. So they pop open the hood and realize that Ethan's car runs on a blood engine, and it is determined that this car is not only possessed by a ghost, it is possessed by a vampire ghost. How that is possible? Do not ask me. I've been wondering how vampire souls go on, because basically the whole vampiric curse is that their soul is blocked. So I don't know, you guys. I didn't write the lore. Ethan then tries to pull the plug on the car, and he gets another vision of that ghost from earlier and sees that it's the vampire who made it. So they try to figure out how they can defeat this car. Benny has some magic that can easily take it out, but they all agree that Ethan should stay far away from it in case anything else were to happen so he can't get blamed. While they're figuring out the spell inside, Erica is using Rory's naivety and care for Ethan to get him to hotwire this car so they could have a blood car that can bring them free blood whenever. But Benny and Sarah walk out at the same time, and they're like, what are you doing? We're supposed to be helping Ethan. Rory's like, we are. Erica said we could steal the car so he doesn't get blamed. They get them to back off, and Benny starts to perform the spell, and they think all is dandy. But is anything ever dandy when Benny does a spell? No, it is absolutely not. The spell pisses the car off. Can you get a repeat of Friday Night Frights when Benny tried to get Coach Ed out of there and it just pissed him off more? Because I can. The car ends up driving off into the town of Whitechapel, and Ethan's like, dude, now my pissed off car is on a rampage, and I'm going to get blamed for even more shit, even though I'm not in the car because the citizens of Whitechapel are stupid as fuck. Ethan and Benny go home, and they're doing some research on the people that were attacked by the car, and they find out that Malcolm and the footballer who were attacked are cousins. So realistically, that must mean that their other cousin must be the next target. Evelyn also comes in and reveals a little bit of history about the ghost that's haunting the car. I believe his name is Jacob, and he used to work for Malcolm's grandpa or great-grandpa, but he was fired after building the car, and out of spite he burnt down the building, and then when he died he ended up possessing the car. So now he's just avenging himself in the afterlife as a car. So they call up this preppy guy whose name I don't remember, and they're like, come over so we could take your picture of you donating croquet mallets to poor people. So he comes over and they try to tell him that he's in danger, but that guy does not give a fuck. They're poor, he doesn't want to talk to them. So instead, Benny knocks him out with magic. Ethan steals his blood so that they can use it to lure the car. The plan is get Rory to carry around the vial of blood used from Malcolm's cousin to trick the car into thinking that he's following this blood descendant of this great-grandfather that Jacob doesn't like to his death. Rory runs to this abandoned junkyard. There we encounter the rest of the gang. The three vampires hold the car off for a little while Ethan comes up with a plan on how to defeat it. And he determines that what he's going to do is defeat it like you would defeat any vampire by staking it in the heart. So he goes up this ramp, gets the car to follow him. It goes over, flips onto its belly, the undercarriage, I guess. And Ethan tries to stake in the heart, but he's not strong enough, so Sarah does it for him anyways, and that defeats the evil car. Slay! All's well that ends well to those with evil cars. And that's the end of episode 3. Episode 4 is titled Flush. We start the episode at some rando's pool party, and one of the girls got in the pool to swim. She thinks her boyfriend got in the pool with her, but it's not her boyfriend. Next thing she knows, she's gone. Something is traveling in the drains of Whitechapel, and we figure this out the next morning when Ethan is showering. And here's this fantastic song that he's singing. I am so clean. Do you know what I mean? My friends are kind of freaky. That doesn't bother me. And as he's singing that, the water cuts out, and he kind of peeks his head out, and he's like, hey, what's going on? The water has cut out. No one knows why. And these two boys have to show up to school with, wet, shampooed, but not conditioned hair. And everybody is laughing at them because losers with gross hair. Ha 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 ha. And they're like, our water cut out. We don't know what happened. Luckily, their hair does dry and goes back to their styled perfection. And they're in home ec, and they're kind of discussing how weird it was that the water is going out and how worried they are that they're going to fail making noodles in home ec. And they go to turn on the water in the classroom, but no water is coming out of the faucet. So Ethan and Benny look under the cabinet to see what is going on, and they see a glowing, scaly thing swoop down the drain. And they're like, oh my god, something's in the drain and it's broken. What are we gonna do? Then cut to Sarah and Erica, who are hazing some freshmen by making them dress like babies and do weird things. Sarah has been volunteering at a blood drive and has been over drinking blood, so she's a little gassy. Does this sound like our Sarah? No. She's drinking, the whole point of the blood drive episode, her stance on it, was that blood was meant to save lives. Erica's hazing the freshmen, and one of them asked to go to the bathroom, and Sarah's like, yes, you can go. While in the bathroom, the girl is screaming, crying, throwing up. She's having some issues. Sarah went in there because she was farting too much, and she hears this girl getting attacked, and she's like, wait, don't worry, I'll go get the nurse. And when she comes back with the nurse, the girl is gone, the toilet is destroyed, and in the wake is a tooth. A tooth. The besties then meet up and talk about that there's something weird in the drains, and Sarah's like, yeah, I know. Look what I found, and shows them the teeth. So they're like, okay, we gotta go down the basement to go figure out what is going on. They go downstairs and they find Rory already down there, and he's like, oh, I was just looking for a snack or something. I actually don't remember why he was down there. And whilst down there, they encounter a glowing green gator, and they're like, that must be the thing that's going through the drains. I think this is the gator that they're able to lock in a cabinet down there. And they're like, how did this happen? And Rory confesses that a few weeks ago when they were having these locker checks, Benny had flushed a potion down the toilet called Super Jock. And Rory had put baby alligators in the toilet after this, which Benny had flushed because Benny was like, you can't just leave it sitting in the toilet. Rory wanted to come back to them. So whilst they were stewing in the toilet water, they were mixing with the Super Jock potion, and now we have these super jacked up crocodiles, and they are wreaking havoc on the sewer system of Whitechapel, and they attacked the one girl they were in the home ec classroom, and they probably attacked the other girl who was in the pool at the beginning of the episode. They then think all is well and okay because when they go to Ethan's house after school, there's a report that that another alligator had been caught at a local pool by a lifeguard. And then Erica shows up at Ethan's house and she is tattered. And she's like, you know what? There's an issue. I was going through the car wash with all of the freshmen in the back, and suddenly this gator comes out and attacks me. And she sees the one on the news and she's like, that's not the one that attacked me. The one that attacked me is bigger. They figure out that there is another gator going around, and while they're doing that, Ethan gets a text from Erica's phone, and he's like, Erica, why did you text me? I'm sitting right here. And she's like, I didn't. And looks around, and she realizes that her phone must have been eaten by the alligator. So they all come up with a plan to track Erica's phone to see where it's going, and then they're going to use some science magic to kill the alligator, which I think they're just mixing some chemicals and they're going to blow it up. So they trace Erica's phone to the rich neighborhoods of Whitechapel where everyone has a hot tub, and they figure that the gator's going under there because it's cold and that's where they would want to stay warm. At the same time, there's also this wicked pool party going on there. So there's a problem because that gator's going to feast. They get to the party and they have to lie and wait for the gator to show up to it. So they're mixing their little chemicals, and then they're like, okay, so it's going to be under the hot tub. Who's getting in? Who's going to be bait? Could you be out of focus? It's not going to be Rory. It's not going to be Erica. Sarah's blowing up the bathroom. So it's got to be Ethan and Benny. And they decide this. The boys really decide this because Erica's like, I'm not going to be a part of it, by playing rock, paper, scissors, lizards, Spock. Rock, paper, lizard, scissors, Spock. Ethan and Benny get in the hot tub, scaring off some girly pops. And then they're like, okay, it's coming. So the gator comes up and they're like, oh, we got to kill it. Luckily, Erica is a brave girl, sticks the bottle in the gator's mouth. He bites it, he explodes, and the gator's life ends. Slay. The next day at school, the boys are fitted out in some gator leather. They're like, it's all's well that ends well. Besides, this was a monster gator, so it's not unethical that we're wearing its skin. And then Sarah's like, what about the one in the basement? So they go and deal with that. And that's the end of episode 4, Flushed. Episode 5, Mirror Mirror. Whitechapel is doing a play. Everybody say yay for the theater episode. I know we talked about in the movie that Jesse wasn't a theater kid, but apparently we're going to see the gang be theater kids, so slay. They're putting on a play, and Miss Erica wants to try out because it's on her long list of things that she wants to do in her life, and she's trying to rope Sarah into doing it, but Sarah's like, no. Benny wants to be a part of it because he wants to do all of the technical stuff. He thinks it'll be really fun. But Ethan doesn't want to because he is, and I quote, a real nerd, not a theater nerd. Very rich coming from you, Ethan. Am I kind of biased because I'm a theater nerd? No.
I feel fucking crazy!
No. Erica ends up auditioning with Sarah reading with her. Unfortunately, Erica doesn't get the role that she wanted, which is the main character. A girl named Sunday Clovers does. Sunday Clovers is played by Bindi Irwin. How they got Miss Bendy, the world will never know. I would genuinely love to sit down and chat with Bendy and figure out how she got here. She got the supporting role, the lead role's best friend, and she's like, should I do it? Should I do it? Yes, it seems like fun. Benny then again approaches Ethan about joining the tech team because he was complaining about how nothing fun is going on, and Ethan's like, no, I'm not doing it. And then Benny's like, Sarah's in it. And Ethan's like, okay, I'll do it now. We then cut to a scene of Sunday going to decorate her dressing room, and while she's in there, she looks in the mirror, and then suddenly she starts talking about not wanting to hurt people while her reflection is telling her that they need to pay and they need to be hurt, and she's like, but I don't want to hurt anyone. That's so mean. We then get into our first rehearsal, and no one seems to like this play. Erica thinks it's cheesy. Benny doesn't like any of the effects because it really doesn't have anything. Ethan just hates plays in general. But Sarah, she's kind of living for this, and she kind of sits there and reminisces about how when she's little she wanted to be an actress, but now she can't because she's a vampire. No one asked you to trauma dump, girl. No one gives a fuck. Love you, don't care. Rehearsal then starts, and Sunday comes out, and she's acting really different. She's reciting a monologue from the play while cutting sandbags, which are super heavy, by the way. She's cutting sandbags, and she's, like, reciting the monologue of the main character. And while cutting sandbags, she's not paying attention, and one of the sandbags falls on her, breaking her of this weird little thing that she's doing and getting her out of the play because she's super hurt. Everyone thinks that somehow Erica has figured out how to glamour someone or threaten her to kind of hurt herself, and Erica's like, no, but I need to fulfill my role. We open in 2 days. Side note, glamoring is this thing that super old, powerful vampires can do. It's basically a form of mind control. I think I spoke in the first movie about how Jesse kind of puts their principal in a trance. He was probably glamoring the principal at that point, and at the end of season 1, Jesse glamours Erica to be under his control. That is glamoring. Erica then goes into her dressing room to prepare and looks in the mirror and sees her reflection, which is really weird because vampires can't see the reflection. It's a whole thing with the vampiric curse. It blocks their soul from any light. So she's genuinely surprised because she's like, damn, I look hot. And then her reflection is like, they need to pay for what they did. And we know Miss Erica, she's not against that, but we don't really see the effect that this has on her. It is later in the evening, and Ethan and his mom are speaking about the incident that happened with Sunday and the sandbags falling on her. And his mom talks about how when she went to Whitechapel, they were doing the same play, and the girl who was playing the lead got a rainbow dropped on her head, and she died that night. And Ethan's like, very, very strange. Opening day comes. Sarah and Erica are rehearsing before the start of the play. Sarah's kind of goofing off, not taking it very seriously, but Erica is kind of acting how Sunday acted before she hit herself with a sandbag, and she ends her little tist about being serious about this by saying, "Stay out of my mirror." And Sarah's like, okay, weirdo, whatever that means. Erica gets mad at Sarah for goofing off and storms off to her dressing room, and Sarah follows her. There, she's like, dude, what's your problem? I was just goofing off. And she realizes that Erica can see her reflection in the mirror, which is impossible because Erica is a vampire. Sarah goes to Ethan to tell him something is weird is happening, and he's like, okay, I'll go investigate the mirror. But for the time being, you should stay away from Erica. And Sarah's like, what, you don't think I could win in a fight? And then Ethan's like, no, come here. And brings Sarah to his locker to show her this chart he and Benny had made, here it is, of their fighting stats. My favorite thing from season 2.
But I think you would win because you're not afraid to get hit in the face.
Go.
Favorite thing from season 2. This is like my dance party from season 1 moment. This is my favorite thing from season 2. Anyways, Ethan goes into the dressing room to investigate the mirror, and he doesn't really see anything weird about it, but as he's looking at himself in the mirror, it starts saying the things, his reflection starts saying the things that it said to Sunday and Erica, and he's like, huh. And he touches the mirror, and he gets dragged into the mirror world. And in there, he sees a girl. He follows the girl into the hallway of the Reversal Whitechapel, and he's like, what is your name? And she's like, my name is Olivia. No one sees me. And he basically touches her and gets a vision of what happened that opening night. The story is that Olivia was the lead actress of the show, but the girl who was playing her best friend in the show didn't really like her and was playing a practical joke on her where the rainbow was supposed to get stuck. And because Olivia had tugged on it so many times, it came and hit her in the head, which resulted in her death. And now she wants revenge on whoever is going to be in her mirror because she never got her shining moment. And Ethan's like, they didn't mean to hurt you. It was just a joke. Dude, they killed her. She can be mad if she wants. And she's like, everyone's going to see me now. And then gets a notification in her head, I guess, that Erica is in her mirror. And basically she goes to her and talks to her and is like, this is your night. This is your moment. This is for you. They need to pay for what they did. And Ethan's like, okay. It's minutes before the show. Erica's still acting weird, but Sarah approaches Benny and she's like, have you heard from Ethan at all about the mirror? And Benny's like, no, I haven't seen him all day. They go into the dressing room and Benny uses this weird stick thing to see if there's a soul in the mirror, and it does pick up that there is a soul in the mirror. So Sarah stands in front of it and Olivia starts talking to her, giving her the same spiel that she's given Erica and Sunday. And then Ethan pushes that bitch out the way, and he's like, guys, let me out of the mirror. It's me, Ethan, I'm trapped. So Benny's like, Sarah, touch the mirror. Ethan needs a supernatural connection to get out. She touches it, and she's able to pull Ethan out. But while doing it, they crack the mirror, which releases Olivia's spirit from the mirror. Ethan then breaks the mirror. R.I.P. 7 years of bad luck. So sorry, friend. And she goes into Erica, who walks in at the same time that they're breaking the mirror. She's now Olivia. And she's like, we're going to start the show from where I left off. And takes over the show and is acting like really weird. And it is like, oh my god, Erica is now possessed by Olivia. So they come up with a plan to let Benny make this magic thing that kind of looks like lightning to suck Olivia's soul out of Erica's body, and so she can go into another mirror. So when Erica's out there having her little moment being Olivia, her and Sarah are fighting, and then Ethan's like, Olivia, your hair's bad, and holds up a mirror to her, and then Benny turns on the light, and her soul gets stuck in this mirror. And they end the episode with Ethan painting over the mirror so that Olivia can never get out. So sorry to you, girl. You just wanted your shining moment, and these people crushed it for you. R.I.P. Olivia. And that's the end of episode 5, Mirror Mirror. Episode 6, Village of the Damned. This is where we have our little Eagle Girl Scouts thing. Jane is a mole girl, and it is Molio season, which are just donuts. And Jane has to hang out with these 2 kids called the Tornado Twins, and she is not at all excited about this. They come over, and they're wreaking havoc in the house, and Ethan's mom and the Tornado Twins' moms are supposed to go out for, like, this Moms of Whitechapel thing, but she couldn't find a babysitter because another babysitter quit. Famously, Ethan's not allowed to babysit, but the mom's like, no, you're old enough to do it, you can do it. And Ethan's mom's like, no, you don't want that to happen. But the mom insists anyways, so Ethan gets stuck with a babysitting job. Ethan's like, so I'm not allowed to babysit Jane, but I can babysit the Tornado Twins. And his mom is like, we'll call Sarah to help you because you're gonna need it. So the night of babysitting comes. Sarah and Ethan are preparing with Ethan's mom to deal with the Tornado Twins, and they're basically hyping these kids up. They're menaces to society. They're horrible children in general. Sarah doesn't really believe them because when the boys come over, they're very, very calm, which is very, very strange. Usually they're wreaking havoc. The moms leave, and the boys really aren't doing anything. Benny and Rory show up as backup for the Tornado Twins and are kind of unnerved by the fact that the Tornado Twins are acting so calm. But when they realize that they are acting calm, they're like, let's go play video games. At the same time, Erica comes over because now her and Sarah have to hunt in a pack. For safety rules set by the Vampire Council, they have to hunt in packs now. I don't know who Rory's hunting with, R.I.P. Rory, but Erica and Sarah fuck off and go hunt, and the boys play video games. And they're like, it's snack time, let's go get a snack. So they send Rory down because he's super fast, and he comes back up, and he has a red ring around his face, and he's like, those kids are weird, man. Those kids are weird. At the same time, we see that Sarah and Erica are waiting for Sarah's blood delivery. She won't drink from people, but she will drink from blood bags from a blood truck. You know, whatever. And they're kind of bitching at each other because they both have very different eating habits. And they start to notice that no one is in the town of Whitechapel. It's dead silent. Nobody is there. To go investigate why Rory has the red circle on their face, the boys go downstairs and they see that all of the children, so Jane and the Tornado Twins, have drawn all of these red doors all around Ethan's house. And of course, as soon as they go down to investigate that, Ethan's mom comes home and she's super duper mad. And the kids are like, we hail Val Mudrap. And they're like, what the is that? It's all they can say. All hail Val Mudrap. And they're like, this is really weird. This is super strange. The next day, they all go to school, but none of the teachers are there. And we see Principal Figgins, and he's like, it's so weird. I got them all of these Molios, and all of the teachers just left. He takes a bite of the Molio, his brain goes clear, and he just starts leaving. Where's he going? Nobody knows. It is then determined that school is dismissed, so Ethan and Benny are leaving, and they notice that there are no adults in Whitechapel at all. So they decide to live out their dreams, and while Ethan is pushing Benny in a shopping cart with pizza that is topped by other pizza, they encounter this teenage girl and a group of children, and they're like, oh, something weird is going on there. they must be mind controlled too, like the Tornado Twins with the whole We Hail Val mud rap. So Benny and Ethan go over to them to talk to them, and Benny tries to convince them that he is their leader, which leads to a bunch of children kicking their ass. They're laying on the ground, their little fists are hitting them, they're getting bit. It's so funny. And at the same time, Sarah and Erica walk by and see them getting beat up by children, and they laugh at them.
Help, this is serious!
It is sick. I'm enjoying you getting your butts kicked by ankle biters.
And they're like, guys, no, this is serious. We're actually being hurt right now. But I can't help but giggle because children? Also, during the time when Benny tried to go talk to the children to get them to be his servants, they realize that the teenage girl, here she is the leader of the mole kids. That's what I'm going to call them because it's boys and girls. The leaders of the mole kids. So she must be in power. And because there are no adults in Whitechapel and the blood truck isn't coming, Sarah and Erica are very irritable because they're very, very hungry. They're starving. They split up because Erica and Sarah are taking Benny to Benny's house to see if he can magic up anything because Evelyn is not there. She also left town after having some molios. So they go to Benny's house to see if he can conjure up a blood potion so that they can have blood substitute so they can stave off their hunger. And Ethan decides to go home to check in on Jane. He sees that she is mind controlled as well. And when he tries to stop her from leaving, he gets a vision of a red door opening up to another dimension. So he tries to stop Jane from leaving. And he's like calling them and he's like, guys, don't worry. I have Jane all figured out. That bitch knocks him the fuck out. She grabs a pan and knocks that bitch out. Meanwhile, Benny kind of somewhat magics something of a blood substitute, and it ends up giving these two girlies tails, but he doesn't really tell them. And he notices that his grandma in her little magic room had left a book open to a page of a girl who looks like the girl of the mole leaders and talks about Moldvarp, I think, which is Val Mudrap just switched around. And Val Mudrap is the same as the little girlie who is leading the mole kids around, and that something is up. They go to catch up with Ethan and find him passed out on the floor, and Ethan's like, I know where they're going, I know what's up, and Benny tells them, yeah, that teenage girl that we saw earlier, she's Val Mudrap, and she is leading them down to this path of destruction. So they go to the park where all the children are, and Sarah and Erica are tasked with keeping them away from Val, but unfortunately, Jane has been chosen as the sacrifice to go in the door to this other dimension. So it's up to the boys, really, to defeat Val, but she has this, like, mole staff, so she takes down Benny right away because he is a human, but Rory is able to withstand it for a while, enough that Ethan can pull Jane away, and then Rory does eventually go down from all the shocks, so her and Ethan start fighting over the staff, and then he pushes her into that fucking dimension. Girl is over with and done with. Bye, bitch. And they're able to wake up all of the children from the mind control that they were under, and then the next day, all of the adults come back having no idea why they went to wherever they went to, but they all went to have fun, so good for them. And that's the end of Episode 6. Episode 7, Hottie Ho-Tep. The gang, minus Erica, are on a field trip to a museum, and it has a little Egyptian part. This museum trip is led by Mr. G, and he's telling the story of the mummy, Hottie Ho-Tep, who died because he didn't want to be in a loveless marriage. And Miss Sarah's like, that's so romantic. The boys don't really care, and all Benny can think of is, I bet he's got some ancient pancreas up in that jar, and I need to replace some because I took all of my grandma's supply. So the class leaves the room, and Benny recruits Rory and Ethan to be on the lookout for him so that they can steal the ancient pancreas. Sarah wants no part of it, and he's able to get some to refill his grandma's supply. Because Benny removes the pancreas from the museum, this brings the mummy to life, who somehow manages to track our three main characters down to, I believe, Benny's house while he's refilling the jar. And they're like, what are we going to do? This mummy's going to attack us. But then they figure out that the mummy is only here for the pancreas. And Sarah's like, this is not my problem. I'm going to leave. And they're like, but wait, we might need your help. It's a monster. And Sarah's like, oh, I'm so scared. And while she's standing at the door while the mummy attacks her, he ends up taking off her necklace as she leaves. And then Ethan's like, you know what? It's up to you, Benny. You stole the pancreas. You bring it back. And Benny is tasked with bringing the mummy back to the Whitechapel Museum. Later at school, Benny shows up and tells Ethan that the mummy is missing. How he lost him, I have no idea. But he reveals that the mummy must have gotten into something that Benny's grandma had in her collection that can rejuvenate a whole body. And when Ethan is listening to Benny talk about this, a hot guy, this guy, walks into school and immediately catches the attention of Sarah. Ethan looks down and notices that he has like a toilet paper trail, and he's like, I found your mummy. He's here in your clothes, and he's talking to Sarah. Ethan is very jealous, and when he goes to talk to Sarah about the mummy, she's like, I don't want to hear anything about it. Besides, I just met this cute guy, and I'm going to show him around school. Okay, bye. That night in the museum, a guard is messing with one of the vases outside of where the mummy used to be, tips it over, spills some sand, releasing some guards that are supposed to keep Hottie Ho-Tep in place. Like, they're supposed to keep him in check in the underworld because he's been cursed by a pharaoh a long time ago that he can never be with the person he loves or some shit like that. So they go out on a mission to find him. We also find out at this time that Rory has an interest in making mummies, and Hottie Ho-Tep has asked Sarah out on a date, to which she says yes. She then has to contemplate whether she wants to tell him she's a vampire or not. Why is that even a question? Girl, you are 17 years old. Calm down. Calm down. I don't think it's that serious. You don't need to be revealing secrets like that, especially to some bitch you do not know. She met him 5 seconds ago. That's too much energy if you ask me. It then comes to the night that Hottie Ho-Tep and Sarah are supposed to be going out, but she has to babysit. And for some reason, Ethan's mom says that she can bring this guy along to babysitting her child. What? And at Ethan's house, the guards show up and are basically like, we're taking Hottie back. And Sarah's like, you're the mummy? And they're like, yeah, he's the mummy. And she gets mad because they didn't tell her. And Hottie is basically like, I'm so sorry. I have to go now. And then he's like, I realize that you have your own secrets too. And she's like all embarrassed because she's a vampire and whatnot. Girl, you were literally going to tell him, don't be embarrassed, shut the fuck up. And he basically invites her to come see him one last night before he goes to the underworld so that he can spend his last meal with her. And she's like, yes, Hottie, I would love to. Cute Ethan's jealousy again. He cannot stand it. Hottie also tells Sarah that he's going to seal their fate in the stars. This kind of ticks a little thing in Ethan's brain and makes him research about Hottie Ho-Tep and realizes that what Hottie means is that he's going to take Sarah to the underworld with him so that they can live there forever. And Miss Sarah does not know that. At the night of the date, Hottie is kind of revealing his plan, but it takes Sarah a while to understand it. So he's like, Anubis is going to come take us to the afterworld. And Sarah's like, yeah, about that. I'm a vampire, can't really die. And Ethan and Benny show up to kind of help her. And one of the guards says, Hottie told us not to let anyone in, especially not Sarah's male friend who cannot take a hint. Eat him the fuck up. As the guards go to like escort Ethan and Benny out, they get hit by a car, and Ethan and Benny are able to go in right before Sarah's about to drink this tea, which is supposed to kill her and take her to the underworld. And they're like, Sarah, don't drink that. It's gonna kill you and take you to the underworld. And she's like, what? Even though Hottie told her like 4 times that was his plan.
If your heart is free of sin, you will get into paradise.
Will not
Let you just walk away from destiny.
She just can't listen, I guess. And she's like, I'm sorry. This is too much for me on the first date. And Hottie's like, I'm not going without her. And tries to use like some magic scepter that he has to get her to go with him. Ethan and Benny use the jars of his internal organs against him, shake it, and get him to like kind of weaken a little bit. And then Sarah pushes Hottie into the portal, and she's like, Sarah says some stupid ass one-liner. She says some one-liner, and I wish I wrote it down, but I didn't. And all's well that ends well. And the next day at school, Sarah tells Ethan that she thinks he's a romantic. Name one thing this boy has ever done in the movie and or the first season or any of the episodes before this that Ethan has done that is romantic. I'll wait. Exactly, it's fucking nothing. He did write her a poem though, so I guess that's sweet, but that's about it. And that's the end of episode 7. We're now getting into episode 8, Independence Daze. This is one of my favorite episodes from season 2. Besides this episode, I think Mirror Mirror is my favorite in season 2. It's a multiverse episode. We are having so fun. Unfortunately, our 3 main characters are not having fun because they are tipping. They are tipping very hard. They all think that they play the most important role when it comes to defeating the monsters that they do. Sarah with her fighting, Benny with his magic, and Ethan with his plans, and it's causing a rift to kind of come in between them. And they're having this fight in front of Miss Grandma, and Miss Grandma is like, you 3 need to buck the fuck up, because I sense something very bad and very dark coming into this town, and you 3 fighting is only going to make you weaker. You all need each other, you all work really well. And they're like, well, I'm the most important. Cue the next morning, we see that Ethan wakes up to a very quiet, very lonely house with spoiled milk and no one there to talk to him. Benny is walking throughout a quiet town of Whitechapel where no one is in the street and he's able to use magic freely, and Sarah is also walking in a quiet Whitechapel, almost on her way to school. We then cut to Erica and rorriM in a full school wondering where their friends are. She's asking if he's seen Sarah because she needs her to sign some petition. And rorriM is like, no, but I'll sign your petition if you hang out with me. I can't seem to find Ethan and Benny anywhere. We then cut back to our trio, who are shocked that no one is in the halls of the school. They all kind of don't seem to notice it at first. Ethan's reading his book, not really paying attention. Benny sat in class and didn't notice anyone was there. And Sarah was just walking through the hallways, and they were like, did Benny do this? Did he read a spell backwards or something? Sarah then decides that she wants to scoot, goot, and boogie out of the school, and as she leaves, she encounters an evil version of herself. She's wearing purple lipstick. She has purple streaks in her hair. She's not wearing, flouncy, girly clothes. She's wearing dark, dreary clothes. Evil Sarah. It then reveals when Sarah's like, who are you? Evil Sarah says, I'm the person you're afraid to be. Ethan, who is trying to contact anyone, anywhere, he can't get on the internet, the phones are not working, but he's in the principal's office and he picks up the cup that means the most to the principal and hears the principal talking, and he can communicate to the principal only the principal can hear him, and he's like, what if I find an object of significance of Benny and Sarah to see if I can talk to them, to see if we can communicate what's going on. He goes to Benny's locker and gets Benny's gym shorts, and he's able to find a compact mirror of Sarah's, and now they're all able to communicate. Meanwhile, before this happened, Benny is living the best time of his life. He's alone and he can do his favorite subject, lunch. But while he's lunching, the robodontist comes in and scares him away. This is Benny's number 1 fear, the robodontist, but he's afraid of it. While he's running, Ethan and Sarah are all communicating, and they all make a plan to meet up in the lounge of their school so that they can maybe try to figure out what's going on. They meet up there, and all of them kind of look like ghost figures. So Ethan's like, let's all touch these objects, and then we will hopefully be pulled in the same universe. So they touch them, and they end up in the same universe, and they all reveal that something has been chasing them. Sarah's being chased by an evil version of herself, Benny the robodontist, and Ethan's like, I'm alone. But he also figures out during this time that he's being chased by this hooded figure, and he's like, he's throwing fireballs. I thought I was alone, but he's throwing fireballs. So they figure out that the best thing they can do is work together to defeat all the things that are chasing them. They start with evil Sarah, and basically they lure her in by making Ethan and Benny be like, oh, we're so full of blood that someone would want to drink. She's like, I guess I can do it while my goody two-shoes self is away. And then this Sarah ends up staking the evil Sarah in the heart. And then Ethan comes up with a plan to get Robodontist to his part computer to basically kill himself by telling him a bunch of logical fallacies. But while Sarah is holding him away, she finds an on and off switch and turns the Robodontist off. And now it's up to defeating the hooded figure, which they have found is very hard to defeat because Ethan doesn't really know where he came from. Remember, he came from Ethan's universe, and they don't really know how to defeat him. It's not as easy as sticking him in the heart or turning him off. So they realize that it's going to be much harder than they think, and that since he can actually hurt them, their best course of action is to find something that can connect them to somebody in their universe to be dragged over. Rory is carrying around this vampire Bigfoot thing, and they realize that it's in his locker, so they go grab it, and they're talking to him, and they're like, Rory, meet us in this place, and we'll see you there in a second. So him and Erica meet them in this place, and they're able to be pulled into their own universe just before the hooded figure can throw fireballs at Ethan and the gang again. And they're like, who? We. They go to Ethan's house after school and they talk to Grandma about how great their teamwork was and how they worked together to overcome this difference. And Grandma reveals that she used a spell to put all three of them in their own independent universe so that it would make them realize that to face their fears, their biggest fears, they have to work together because they're stronger as a team. Sarah's was everything she's afraid to be, Benny the robodontist, and when Ethan was like, okay, then who's the hooded figure that was throwing fireballs at me? Grandma's like, you were supposed to be alone. Your biggest fear is losing everyone you love. And then she gets really scared because she realizes that this person is very powerful and that they are part of the darkness that is coming into Whitechapel that she can sense. So let's add a little hooded figure up here for extra mileage. Episode 9, Siren Song. This is also a Slay episode. It's not one of my favorites, but it is a Slay episode. Also, here's the hooded figure from the previous episode. He is up here now because he is the darkness that we have been sensing since episode 1. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Anyways, episode 9, Siren Song. Rory is performing at an open mic night at his school, and he's begging Ethan and Benny to come down, and they're like, nah. And just before he gets to perform, a girl named Serena goes up on the stage and performs a song. As she's performing, everyone around Rory starts breaking out in a fight. They're tiffing. They're fighting. And she gets over and she's like, thanks. You. The next morning, Rory is telling Ethan and Benny about how awesome this performance was because everybody absolutely lost their mind and went batshit insane. And they see the girl, Serena, walking through the hallway, and as she walks by people, they start breaking out into fights. And they automatically think it's very suspicious and very weird. This week, also, they're having a talent show at their school. Rory is trying out, and so are Sarah and Erica. And before anyone can try out, Serena goes up there first to try out, begins singing again, and everyone in the auditorium breaks out in fights again. Strange and very, 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 very weird, if I say so myself. Rory also uses this opportunity to record her, but stops the recording as soon as he hears her singing for a little bit because he's breaking out into a fight with everybody. After the talent show, Rory goes to the trio up here and shows them the video of Serena singing because they missed the performance. And when he plays the video, it is just screeching. And the best way I can describe it is like the scene in Goblet of Fire when Harry opens the egg above water. So it gives Benny and Ethan the idea that Serena might be a mermaid. So when they go to splash water in her at the school, Serena touches Ethan and gives him a vision, and it's just this loud ass screeching, and we see her face kind of go weird, purpley and melty, and Ethan's like fucking hearing is shot for a while. So Benny brings him back home and puts Ethan in his closet and puts headphones on his ears so that Ethan can kind of regain everything and go back to normal. And then they figure out that Serena might be a siren. So they look up lores on sirens and figure out that the only way to defeat them, as they were originally defeated years ago, was to beat them in a singing competition like the Muses did. And the best way to do that is to get into the talent show. So our boys come up with a plan to make a band. And that band is called the Musitronics. They mathematically figure a song that's like very appealing. Like they search up the most used words in a song, the best beats and everything, and they audition, and it sounds like shit, but the principal, Vice Principal Stern, is like, if I let you in, do I never have to hear that again? And they're like, yes! So they get into the show as Musitronics. Like, you don't understand. I am Musitronics #1 fan. Me, you, me, always together. And that's all I know. I'll play the song later, just wait. They also determine that a way to defeat her is to play one of her songs back at her, just whereas her waves are the positive waves, playing the song back at her reversed will be negative waves, so they include that into the song too. Come the night of the talent show, Musitronics is rearing and gearing to go, and they're one of the first few to go. So they get on the stage and they're performing the little song. Here's a little song.
Musatronic.
Musatronics!
Gets your feet tapping on that floor. You never want to finish all your Brussels sprouts, but the treatment's coming, makes you scream and shout. Gotta get that cake. Yeah, gotta eat that cake.
Yeah, pop and lock, honey!
Come on now, who wants some cake? I want some cake.
And Serena is getting jealous. She doesn't like the attention. Remember, the mythology for sirens is that they get jealous of the muses for winning a singing competition. So when they're getting all the applause, Miss Serena, she can't stand it. So she starts using her siren voice against the people of the audience, but the boys are using her song against her, and they're able to defeat her. And they're victorious at the talent show. Everyone fucking loves Musatronics. Like, can you say slay? That's the end of the episode. They won. I'm Musatronics' #1 fan. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Episode 10, Jockenstein. We have another sports episode. You guys aren't even ready. This is one of my favorite sports episodes because we get to see Ethan and Benny in hockey apparel. Oh, yeah. Our boys are trying out for the hockey team. And on this team is a guy named Bolts. Here he is. He is taking everybody out left and right, even people on his own team. And everybody is fearing and backing away, but Ethan and Benny are not. Ethan doesn't really want to join the team. He likes hockey, but he doesn't like playing hockey. And Benny just wants to be cool. If you're on a sports team or you play an instrument, and I think he said that Ethan's oboe lessons aren't really paying off, girls are going to flock to you. And since everybody else is leaving the team because they're afraid of Jockenstein, because they're afraid of Bolts, it means Ethan and Benny are now on the team. Cue them looking good in their hockey apparel. I know, they're wearing their jerseys, they're carrying around hockey sticks. Normal things you do when you're a hockey player in high school. That night, Sarah and Rory are going out on flying lessons, and they land in a graveyard where they notice somebody digging up a grave. And they're like, this is a little suspicious. Let's leave! And they leave. At lunch the next day, Ethan and Benny are sitting with Bolts at the hockey table, and they're just chit-chatting away, and Ethan notices that Bolts has 2 different sized looking hands. Very strange, very weird. And Sarah comes over to tell them about the weird encounter that she had in the graveyard last night with Rory, and the boys are like, and not the boys, mostly Benny, I was like, this is the hockey table. And Sarah's like, oh, are you guys the water boys? Like, please, girl, don't read them to Phil like that. That's so mean. But they're like, no, we actually made the team. If you could be a little nicer about it. And you can't sit here because you're not on the team. Boo-hoo, hooey, pooey, poo. Leave. So she does. After she leaves the table, she's confronted by more lackeys of the Vampire Council telling her that she needs to come in. She goes in, and the Vampire Council basically says that they think she is drinking blood from dead bodies. And this is dangerous because if vampires do this, they can get sick. And then they will pass this virus on to other vampires. And the only way that they can defeat this is by killing Miss Sarah. Let's not kill Miss Sarah, please. Let's not do that. And Sarah's like, I'm not. I was there with Rory. You can ask him. And they were like, yeah, he said that you guys were on a date. We didn't believe him. So Sarah pleads, and the Vampire Council gives her 24 hours or 48 hours to prove that she is not drinking from dead bodies and to prove that somebody else was like, she told them about how she saw somebody else digging up the graves. So she has to prove that that is essentially happening, or else they kill her. She goes to the boys for help, but they're like, we're hockey boys now. It's too, no. So it's now up to the Fang gang, as I call them, to figure out what is going on. And the only reason that it's up to all 3 of them is that the Vampire Council has asked both Rory and Erica to watch over Sarah to make sure that she is not drinking from dead bodies. It is now game time for the Whitechapel Devils, and we see Bolts absolutely killing it on the ice. We also see that Ethan is incredibly good at coaching hockey. Like he said, he likes watching hockey, he doesn't like playing hockey. And this catches the attention of the coach. He is like, you should come by my office after the game so we can discuss coaching strategies. Bolts then skates up to where Ethan and the coach are talking, and him and Ethan touch, and Ethan gets a vision of different pictures of hockey players with different body parts with circles around him, and he is automatically suspicious, but he doesn't really think twice of it in the moment. But after the game, he does approach Benny and tell him that something is off about Bolts, and then we see Bolts acting like really strange, and then that's when the coach comes up and is like, Ethan, can you stay to discuss coaching strategies? Ethan doesn't want to, but Benny pressures him to do it because he thinks it'll be really good for Ethan. So Ethan has to stay after school with the coach to discuss hockey strategies. Back to the Fang gang. They're at the graveyard where Sarah was accused of drinking dead bodies. And Erica and rorriM are like, maybe we shouldn't be at the place where you were accused of drinking dead bodies. But as they're there, they see the old man from when it fell down, and it's going to stay there because I'm going to finish this up and then I'll put it back up. They see the old man from earlier, and Sarah basically knocks him over and is like, what are you doing? Why are you digging up dead bodies? And he explains that he's not doing it for himself, he's doing it for hockey. Suspicious, so you say? Sarah then calls Benny and tells Benny that Bolt is this weird Frankenstein-like monster that is being created from all these dead body parts. But the gravedigger is not the one building it, it's the coach. And the coach is missing one vital thing in Bolts that he needs to find. What is that, you may ask? A noggin, a brain. Who does he have in his office? The brains of everything, Ethan Morgan. At the school, Ethan is talking with the coach, and the coach is talking about how he needs a good brain, and that Volts is this Frankenstein-like monster, and he needs Ethan's brain so he can make the perfect hockey player, because Bolts is perfect physically, but not mentally with hockey strategies, but Ethan is, so he's going to harvest Ethan's brain. They show up to find Ethan, but the coach comes out and uses Bolts as like this security dog, so Sarah tries to run over to him and defeat him, but vampire speed and ice don't mix as per what rorriM says, so she's sent to go find Ethan, and it's left up to these three, really, to defeat Bolts. So these two get knocked out. She actually drinks blood from Bolts, what Sarah was accused of doing, but I guess the Vampire Council's never going to know of it, and it kind of sickens her and weakens her, so Benny is able to defeat Bolts by shooting a killer hockey puck shot at the gem on his mask and knocking it out, thus disabling Volts. Sarah's able to find the room where Ethan is being held captive, and when she goes to rescue him, the coach puts this little hat on her and electrocutes her, and she's kind of taken out of the game. So he goes to get ready to cut Ethan, but she wakes back up in time and knocks him out, and he is saved. Sarah then goes to the council with the gravedigger, and she's like, see, I didn't do it. He's digging up body parts for hockey. And they're like, how do we know you're telling the truth? And she goes, I thought of that. So he drops this bag of disgusting, gross parts that he dug up. And she's like, it's yours now. Bye. And fucks off. And that's the end of episode 10. We're in the home stretch, besties. We're in the last 3 episodes of season 2. Episode 11 is named Halloweird. It's Halloween time! Mr. G is teaching a class with artifacts, and he talks about a mask which a shaman used to wear and would use to turn his warriors into the animal skins that they were wearing. If they were wearing bear fur, they would turn into a bear, and whatnot. rorriM falls asleep in class, and Mr. G keeps him after to erase the whiteboards, and while Mr. G is not in the room, rorriM goes to put on the mask that he was talking about, and it melts to his face and gives him the power to turn people into whatever they're wearing. As I said, it's Halloween, and unfortunately, Sarah has to babysit. She can't go to the traditional vampire Halloween that Erica wants to take her to. Ethan, feeling bad that Sarah has to babysit, says that he's going to throw a party so she doesn't have to miss out on plans. And when he tells Benny about these plans, he was like, so it's just going to be us? And Ethan's like, no, we have other friends. This is the first time I'm hearing of it, Mr. Ethan. A movie in 2 whole seasons. You only hang out with these people. You don't have any other friends. But Benny was like, oh yeah, super, that's going to be so fun. Do we have to invite rorriM? He always gets weird with parties. And then they look down the hallway, and rorriM, because of the mask, is acting super strange. And they're like, well, I guess, but Come the night of the party, and this is one of my favorite Sethan moments.
Hi, it's editing Lauren. I was doing some research because I was very curious to see if my ship name for Ethan and Sarah was correct. It is not. I was saying Sethan this entire time. Turns out, canonically in the fandom, their ship name is Ethera. I kind of like Sethan better, but I'm kind of biased. So I wanted to put that in because this whole time I've been saying Sethan and it's Ethera and I hate it. I hate it. I'm so not sorry. That's literally the worst ship name I've ever heard in my life. Shut the fuck up.
Ethan is dressed as Jake-Ward from Dusk, and we find out that Sarah is dressed as Rochelle, the Bella of Dusk. Can you say couple's costume or couple's costume? Because I can say couple's costume. Hashtag Sethan confirmed. Anyways, the party starts, and it's pretty boring because keep in mind, Ethan and Benny are friends with a bunch of geeks. Yeah, they have costumes and they're ready to do everything, but it's not the group that Sarah's used to hanging out with. Benny shows up and he is dressed as a Mexican wrestler slash Merlin, El Merlo Loco, and Jane is dressed up as a cat. They're having a good old time. Sarah is bored, and Ethan and Benny end up leaving because they have to take Jane trick-or-treating, and Sarah is left in charge of this party. After they leave, Erica calls Sarah and tells her that Rory got them kicked out of traditional vampire Halloween, so they're coming over to Ethan's house, and Sarah's like, yes, we're gonna tear it up, I'm gonna have such a good time, all these people are lame, and Erica's like, no, I'm having my traditional vampire Halloween anyways, but I'll be there in spirit. Thanks, girl. After Erica shows up, she goes up to Ethan's bedroom to do like the traditional vampire ritual. Rory shows up and begins wreaking havoc along the party. Like I said, the mask he's wearing gives him the power to turn everyone into the party into what they're wearing. So one girl's dressed up like a girl gorilla, so he turns into an actual gorilla. There's like a Doctor Who parody in there that gets turned into Doctor Who. Someone gets turned into like this robot thing. There's like a dolphin ninja that gets turned into an actual ninja. It's like getting out of control. Ethan and Benny show back up home with Jane, and Sarah's like, there you are. This party's gotten out of control, and Rory is acting crazy. And they're like, crazy how? So he walks up to Jane, who's dressed as a cat, and turns her into a real cat, and they're like, oh, that kind of crazy. And they're like, we need to figure out how to stop him from turning everybody into the things that they're being turned into and get the mask off of him. They think back to what Mr. G said about the mask in class, and they learn that if they use lightning, they can like shoot the mask off of Rory's face. Ethan's like, oh great, Benny, can't you do that with magic? And Benny's like, no, it would require some weird magic that I don't have the power to. But Ethan's like, would El Merlo Loco know how to do it? And Benny's like, yeah, he's the most powerful wizard in the world. So then they devise a plan to get Rory to turn Benny into El Merlo Loco. He does, but unfortunately, El Merlo Loco can only speak Spanish. But he can communicate with them. So he understands English, but he can only speak Spanish, so they don't really know what he's saying. So he fucks off to go have fun. At the same time, Rory had also turned Ethan's mom into an actual witch, so she's brewing a potion, and El Merlo Loco is helping her. And they're like, okay, it's down to us to figure out what's going on and to stay away from Rory so he doesn't turn us into our costumes, which are Jake-Ward and Rochelle. Unfortunately, while they're not paying attention, Ethan gets turned into Jake-Ward, and Sarah gets turned into Rochelle. So now Ethan is a vampire, and Sarah is back to full human status, and they're being very dramatic and running around with each other, you know, typical Twilight stuff. Rory, with the mask on, goes to attack Rochelle. She calls for Jake-Ward, and when him and Jake-Ward are tiffin, Jake-Ward is pinned, but El Merlo Loco comes in just in time, and he's like, mi amigo, ayuda, and pulls Jake-Ward up and uses his electricity fingers to shoot the mask off of Rory's face. While he's doing this, Jake-Ward and Rochelle sneak off to another room, and they're in this very intense moment, and they're just about to kiss, but then they turn back into Ethan and Sarah, and then Ethan's like, it must have been important as to why we were kissing, and Sarah's like, not that important. Fuck you, Sarah. My Sethan moment was ruined. How important? Important? Nothing needs to be important. Look at that man. You know you like him. Please. Please. They knock the mask off of Rory, and he's like, is this a party? Am I invited? And the night ends. That's also one of my more favorite episodes because it's just so goofy and silly. And the reason it's so goofy and silly is because we're in the last 2 episodes of the season, and we're going to do them combined because it is a two-parter. We are talking about episodes 12 and 13 of season 2, The Date to End All Dates, part 1 and part 2. We start the episode learning that a year has come up. A year ago, Benny and Ethan made a bet that Ethan would not ask Sarah out within a year's span. If Benny wins, he gets $100. If Ethan wins, he gets $100 and a date with Sarah. Ethan is very determined that he's going to follow through with this bet. Benny doesn't believe he's going to, and Ethan's like, don't worry, I'm going to do it, I promise. So the school day goes by, and Ethan kind of chickens out, and just as he's getting ready to ask Sarah out on another date, the Vampire Council sent 2 lackeys to come collect Ethan. He's reluctant to go, but they're like, we can kill you if you really don't want to come in. So Ethan goes in, he brings Benny, and he also brings Rory. Ethan isn't really brought in for anything bad. They just need his seer abilities to look into the mind of an elder vampire who is in a state of shock. They say that he was tending to the library in the Vampire Council building, and they just found him like that. At first, Ethan is reluctant because he's like, I really don't know how to do that. I just kind of touch people and visions come to me. I can't control what I see. It just kind of happens. And they kind of threaten his life, and he's like, okay. So he touches the elder and is able to see inside the elder's mind. Now here's the thing. Before this moment, Ethan's visions weren't very voluntary, and he couldn't really control what he was able to see as he was explaining. Supernatural things had to come in contact with him, and then he would get the visions. Now he can touch other supernatural beings or just other people in general and look into his minds. That's basically what he's doing. He looks into the elder's mind, and he sees the hooded figure from a few episodes ago confronting the elder and asking him if he knows where the lucifractor is, and then he sees a symbol of an eye with 2 snakes. He tells the Vampire Council about the lucifractor, and they seem kind of scared of it, but usher him out and tell him not to worry, and that's all they needed from him. Important reminder, Ethan does not tell them about the symbol that he saw. For some reason, he decides to keep that to himself. Sarah hears from Erica that Ethan has been pulled to the Vampire Council building and goes there to see if everything is okay. It is almost time for his bet to be up with Benny, and Ethan mans the fuck up and asks Sarah on a date, and she says, sure, why not? It'll be fun. Ethan confirms! They're going on a date. 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 Sleep, 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 sleep. Before his date, though, Ethan, Benny, and Rory are hanging out at Ethan's house, and he basically reveals what he had to do for the Vampire Council and tells them that he lied about seeing this symbol. And he's like, you know, with everything that's going on, maybe I shouldn't go on my date. But Benny and Rory are like, no. It took you a year to get here. Don't take it for granted. Go on your date, enjoy your time. We'll do some research. Ethan had told them about the symbol, so while they're trying to figure out where the symbol is, they're down in like Ethan's living room, and they notice a map that his dad had left out. His dad is like an insurance guy, and they see that the symbol lines up with this like big circle on the map. So Ethan's dad explains that this is like a not insured place because so many disasters have happened. Flooded basements, evil trees, you name it, it's happened there. And when Benny asks his dad to go find pictures of flooded basements, he tells Rory that this is a supernatural hotspot, so it must be where the lucifractor is, because it's like this ball of all-powerful dark energy. So if a bunch of bad supernatural stuff is happening over there, that must be where it's hiding. Sarah and Erica are walking to Ethan's before their date. Sarah's kind of denying that it's an actual date, but Erica's like, no, it's a date. And she notices that Sarah is wearing a bracelet from Jesse. And she's like, don't you think you shouldn't be wearing that on your date with Ethan? And Sarah's like, it's the only nice thing I got out of this relationship, so I can wear it. It's fine. Besides, we're just 2 friends on a date. But then they see Ethan approaching with a flower, and Erica's like, yeah, you're definitely just friends. Very cute. He gives Sarah his arm. They walk off to a restaurant that Erica recommended. But when he grabs Sarah's arm, he gets a vision of Jesse. And he's like, hey, Ethan, been a while. We need to talk. Like, mind your business, Jesse. You're in another town. No one cares about you anymore. He gets this vision, but he doesn't want to tell Sarah about it because he doesn't want to freak her out. And he's like, this is my night with Sarah. We're going on a date. Benny and Rory arrive at the place where the Lucifractor is being held. It's like this old hotel or something. And when they go to get it out, they're like, that was surprisingly easy. Why is nobody here to guard it? But then the shadow monster appears and starts chasing them throughout the basement of this hotel where the Lucifractor was being hidden. So they're trying to figure out, like, what they can do to get rid of it. But then the hooded figure comes out and destroys the shadow monster, and they're like, oh fuck, we gotta get out of here. So they're able to make it out of the basement, and they now have hold of the Lucifractor, which is so powerful that it has the vampire council scared. Back to Ethan and Sarah's date. Ethan and Sarah arrive at the restaurant, and it's kind of this like really nice place. Sarah's very impressed, but it's a little awkward. It's not going as well as either one of them thought. And because it's not going as well as they thought, Ethan randomly just feels the urge to tell Sarah that he got a vision about Jesse, and she's like, what? Jesse, what happened? And he was like, I don't know, he just said he wanted to talk. I think he knows we're dating, and I'm going to tell him that this is just about me and you. So he touches Sarah's bracelet again and goes inside the vision this time. And it starts again with how Jesse had said it, like, Ethan, it's been a while, we need to talk. And he's like, how are you here? And Ethan's like, don't worry about it. You need to leave us alone. And then Jesse is like clued into the fact that he's on a date with Sarah, and he's like, listen, I'm not here to like stake my claim or anything. I'm just here to warn you. He tells Ethan about the Lucifractor and how they need to retrieve it because darkness is coming. He hid it so many years ago, like so long ago, like back when he was known as Horace Black. He hid it so long ago and was able to defeat the sorcerer who had created it and created its power, and that to have control over it, he knows that it will be fine in Ethan's hands. Ethan then calls Benny and Rory, and they reveal that they have the Lucifractor, and Ethan talks about, like, the little guard dog thing, and they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. We'll come meet you at the restaurant. They bring the Lucifractor to the restaurant, and they're kind of showing Ethan what it is. Earlier, before they had shown up, Benny had Rory hold it, and it had weakened Rory a little bit. Turns out the Lucifractor kind of takes the dark magic that makes vampires go. And when Ethan uses or like touches the Lucifractor, I think he uses it in the restaurant for something, it weakens all of the other vampires, and then they realize that there's a reason Ethan needs to have it in his power. Not only is he not subject to the dark magic, it seems like he kind of is for a second. He's like, so much power. But Ethan would be able to get it away from everyone he loves, mostly Sarah. This, however, the Lucifractor coming into the date effectively ruins their date, and Sarah's like, let's just call it a night. I'm really tired and wants to leave. So sorry to the Ethan shippers out there. I know this was not the first date we wanted. It's the one we got, though. Boo-hoo, sad. Like, I'm literally crying my eyes out right now. Ethan brings the Lucifractor to school and is talking about how dangerous it is and how they need to protect it. He also talks about how he had really bad dreams because he slept with it under his pillow. And Benny's like, yeah, but it's super powerful, so we should use it to do whatever we want. And Ethan's like, that's exactly why I want to get rid of it, because that would pose a threat. They end up fighting over it in the school hallway, and their principal, Mr. Stern, takes it from them and takes it to his office. We end the episode with Mr. Stern weirdly, like, admiring it, and we find out that our hooded figure from all of the episodes before is really Mr. Stern. He's been here the whole time under our noses. Now here we are, folks, the last episode of season 2. We start the episode after the chain of events of episode 12, where the Lucifractor had been taken by Vice Principal Stern, who we learn is the hooded figure who has been bothering Ethan this entire time, the darkness, the chaos over Whitechapel. They tell the Vampire Council that it's in safe hands because it's in the hands of their principal, Mr. Stern, but Anastasia is very adamant that they get it back because they really need it so that they can be in control of it and have the power over it so that no vampires can get hurt. Because if used by the wrong person, could wipe out all of the vampires in Whitechapel. Boys are then sent back to school where they try to go in Mr. Stern's office to find it, but they are caught and kicked out. While talking to each other about it, Benny walks away and Ethan says that's a mistake just as Sarah walks out, and she kind of tries to lightheartedly joke that it's about their date, to which Ethan takes automatic offense and he's like, "You thought it was a mistake?" She's like, "Only if you did." And he's like, "Yeah, it was horrible." And then she gets offended, and it's this whole stupid fucking miscommunication trope that I don't like. Sarah walks off pissed off. Ethan walks off pissed off because now they both think that the date was a horrible idea, and they're both so mad at each other, and I just can't stand that plot line because it makes me mad. Erica and Sarah are talking about this whole conversation, and Erica kind of bites Sarah in the ass and is like, "Well, you did say it was a mistake." And Sarah's like, "I was just joking." And she was like, "Well, what if he was too? Like, please, girl, eat her up, because how could you do this to my baby Ethan? Like, please don't make him cry like that. He's a sensitive man." Fortunately, while Ethan and Benny were in Mr. Stern's office, Benny was able to find a ring that had previously been confiscated in the past that can make him look like other people. So he uses the ring to make himself look like Vice Principal Stern and goes into his office to see if he can find the lucifractor. However, Vice Principal Stern knew of his plan and caught Benny while he was doing that, and basically uses magic to get Benny to tell him the whole plan. Benny tells him everything about how Ethan's a seer, how he does magic, they're vampires, and their whole plan to get the lucifractor and everything they know about the lucifractor. Ethan and Benny meet up after both their awkward encounters with Stern and Sarah themselves, and Benny's basically like, "So what's our plan?" And Ethan's like, "I don't really have a plan." Ethan then asks Benny if he's seen Mr. Stern, but he's like, "No, but here's this note that's addressed to you." He gives Ethan a note, and it automatically sends Ethan into this vision, where it's basically kind of like the one that Jesse had earlier, except Ethan's not in there himself. Stern is talking to Ethan and reveals his whole plan. Whitechapel used to belong to Stern's family. Like, his whole family had made the town of Whitechapel, and then Jesse's little clan of vampires had come in and taken over and killed his great-great-grandfather or whatever and taken over the town. Stern's plan is to use the lucifractor in this, like, little well thing at the Vampire Council building. It, like, helps them communicate with other vampire councils across wherever to extend its magic and kill all of the vampires and take over the town again and let him rule over it. The letter ends with Ethan kind of getting shocked, and when he looks up from the letter, Benny, and this is the scene that this picture is from, Benny takes off the ring and reveals that he is Vice Principal Stern. After he was done with the letter, Ethan gets, like, struck with some magic by Stern that makes him see everyone around him dead. The first person that tries to talk to him is Sarah, and it freaks him out so much that he runs home scared. Benny then comes to see him after school, and he's like, "Your mom is saying you're acting weird." And Ethan tells Benny that he is seeing dead people, and Benny's like, "I'm for sure not dead." But he sees that Ethan is very scared, so he takes him to Evelyn, and Evelyn basically reveals that he has, like, this fear spell on him, and that Ethan just has to be stronger than the spell to overcome it. She realizes that the only way to really break Ethan out of the spell is to bring the person that he cares about the most into the situation to try to, like, unlock him from the spell, which is Sarah. So Ethan's sitting next to Sarah. She's still looking dead, and Evelyn is like, "Ethan, you have to let go of this fear. Look at Sarah. She's real, she's alive, and she needs you. Her life is in danger, and you have to save her. You care about her the most." Benny gets offended because he's like, I'm his best friend." Ethan's still kind of underneath the spell. He looks away, and him and Evelyn have a little private moment where he shows her the note that Stern had given her, and it sends Evelyn into, like, this state of shock. Ethan touches her as soon as she goes in, and he's able to communicate with her telepathically. He's in her mind talking to her, and she's like, "How are you doing this? This spell is so powerful that it should have you in this state that I'm going to be in when we leave this vision. You're stronger than you think, and you can defeat him." So he leaves Evelyn's mind, and she's stuck in this state of shock. So without Evelyn, our three main characters don't have their older mother figure to help them out with whatever's going on, and Ethan basically reveals that they are alone. We cut to the Vampire Council freaking out because they know that the lucifractor is in the hands of someone they don't want it to be in. They've called Erica and Rory and Sarah in, but she's occupied with this, so they're relying on Erica and Rory to take over positions of the Vampire Council. Erica is told to help them pack up stuff, while Rory is sent to be a guard to protect them from whoever is coming. They're in a full mode of panic. They'd rather leave Whitechapel than die there, and they figure, or at least Anastasia figures, that they'll just wait until Stern dies and then they'll come back when he's gone. And they're like, but what about our friends? Our friends are here. We can't leave them. And Anastasia glamours them to make sure that they are on her side. And we cut back to Ethan, Benny, and Sarah. And Ethan is still trying to overcome his fear binding. And he realizes that the way to do this is with love. So he holds hands with Benny and Sarah. And then suddenly he sees them normal again. And he's like, just wait a second. I have a plan. Ethan comes up with a plan, and he determines that because they can't have Evelyn there, he has to bring in big guns who knows what they're doing. And he's like, please don't be mad at me when I reveal who this person is. And he says, you can come in. It's fucking Jesse. He invites Jesse back to Whitechapel to help them defeat the Lucifractor. At first, Sarah is a little standoffish, obviously, because the last time she saw Jesse, he had forced her to become a full vampire, and he's like, listen, the past is in the past, it's fine, we have to defeat the guy with the Lucifractor, okay? Then you can be mad at me, okay? Okay? At the same time, Anastasia thinks it's a lost cause, and while under the root of her glamoring, gets Rory and Erica outside the premises of Whitechapel. They kind of like pop out for a second of the glamoring, and they're like, wait, what about our friends? But she's quick to get them back into the glamour state, and they stand outside of the outskirts of Whitechapel watching everything go down. Jesse, Ethan, Benny, and Sarah are going to the Vampire Council, and they ask Jesse originally how he defeated Stern's great-grandfather a long time ago. And Jesse says that all Stern wants is lots of power. So Jesse basically tricked him into doing something while he came up behind him and drained him of his blood. So the plan is that they're going to figure out how to get Stern so distracted by power that they can disarm him from behind. They show up in the Vampire Council building, and they see the ashes of previous vampires that were already staked before them on the ground everywhere, and they encounter Stern. And Stern earlier had put a spell on Benny to reveal everything. He also is able to mind control Benny and uses him as a little shield against everybody for a little while so that he can get a head start to go where he needs to go to put the Lucifractor in to extend its magic. Luckily, after the events of the double negative episode in season 1, Benny had sent in an email a spell to reverse any mind control that may happen on him to Ethan. Ethan's able to use it, which gets Benny to stop what he's doing for a little while. And while Ethan and Benny are kind of recouping, Sarah and Jesse are sent in to distract Stern. He uses the Lucifractor against them, and while they struggle, Ethan comes up behind him and gets in Stern's mind, which is where this photo comes from. That's why he looks so weird. Stern is at first shocked because he doesn't understand how Ethan is doing this, and Ethan's like, I'm in your mind, and is able to play a mind trick on him and get Stern to think that he can be more powerful than the Lucifractor, which he is not. In my notes, I wrote, Ethan basically bullies him into being insecure. Stern sets the Lucifractor on himself, and the energy starts building and building and building, and Jesse's like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. All 4 of them are seen running out of the building. We cut to the outskirts of Whitechapel, where Anastasia, Erica, and Rory are on looking onto the town of Whitechapel. We see a purple explosion of magic, and Rory reminisces on how much Ethan and Benny would have loved to see that explosion, and he hopes that they got to see it. And that, my friends, is the end of My Babysitter's a Vampire. That's it. For years, at least since 2012, so over 10 years now, the fate of Ethan, Benny, Sarah, and Jesse have been left up to interpretation. Can we talk about the development of our little character tree here? Look at how many people we have up here. Something I wanted to touch on before I get into the things that I liked about season 2. I used to have very bad thoughts about season 2. I never liked it. I always thought it was very poor quality, horrible and shitty. And then when I actually got to sit down and watch it for enjoyment and watch it to take notes on, I realized that season 2 is actually very good in a lot of ways, and I'll be talking about the things I loved about season 2 next. But one of the ways that it was very good was that they had a direction that they wanted to go in. I think season 1 had a lot of plot episodes condensed to one episode, but season 2, obviously, we built up to figuring out who Stern was, and I love that very much. And I think the reason I have such a negative connotation about season 2 is because we don't know the fate of 3 of my favorite characters in this show, and that's always really bothered me, and I'll never know the fate of these characters. But yeah, these are our lovely characters. And that's the end of season 2. Thank you. Hi. I hope you enjoyed the recap of season 2. I know it's very gloomy at the end, but I'm here to talk about some of my favorite moments from season 2. So let's get started. Point number 1 is the whole group dynamic. Now that we've had a movie and 2 seasons under our belt, the group got, well, at the beginning of the season, we had a movie and 1 season under our belt and lots of, how you say, traumatic things happening to the group. And I love how they carry themselves now. Obviously, with season 2, they went for a more friendship group-wise approach. Erica and Sarah are much closer. Erica is more willing to hang out with Ethan, Benny, and Rory. Even, I think what made me think of this the most was that Erica called Ethan first when she heard about the Dirk rumor. And in that same episode, Welcome Back, Dusker, Ethan refers to Erica as one of his best friends. I think that is so slay. Like, please, that's so slay. The group dynamic is everything. Number 2 is Sarah and Ethan's flirtation. I don't really remember a lot of points from that, but when I was researching Sarah and Ethan, I was looking at what a lot of the writers and Vanessa Morgan, who plays Sarah herself, had to say about it. And they truly confirmed that season 2 was all about building up how Sarah sees Ethan. He's not a nerdy he's not somebody who has a nerdy crush on her. He's somebody who genuinely cares about her, wants to look out for her, and wants to take care of her. And I think that shows in so many different moments. And I think even if Sarah herself didn't realize it in those moments of the time that she spent with Ethan, there was a lot of time where she definitely had much more than just platonic feelings for him. And I'm going to spoil it now because we're talking about their flirtation. When researching, I found a writer who was talking about where they wanted to go for season 3, and they all but confirmed that Sarah and Ethan would have gotten together. They say that the show wasn't supposed to be relationship oriented, so even if they did get together, it would probably be at the end of season 3, and maybe that would have been the end of the show entirely had they gotten their way. Oh, or it would have just been like a minor thing in the back, like Ethan and Sarah are together, but it's not going to be a main plot point of every episode, and it's not going to be brought up of every episode. But he did say it would have paid off in the end had we been able to see that. And I think that shows especially a lot in the last 2 episodes, where even though, and they said this too, the writer said this too, that they wanted to build up to a moment where Sarah was like, why not? I'll go on a date with him. You can tell that she is clearly hurt by him kind of suggesting that maybe the date was a regret to him, and her constantly making jokes about it after to kind of reconcile what had happened and wanting to do more. I think it is so cute. As I said, I am a Ethan shipper, so I wanted them to be together, and season 2 just made me want them to be together even more. Number 3 is that anytime Sarah had to fight one of her mortal friends, she always pulled her punches. Miss Sarah is not one to shy away from a fight, and I quote Ethan from episode 5, Mirror Mirror, that she's not afraid to get hit in the face, but she is afraid to hit her friends in the face. I think I have episode 9 written down. I don't really remember what happens in episode 9, but I do know that in the first episode, Welcome Back, Dusker, when Ethan is possessed by the green gas, she will not hit him. Point 4, I reenacted this for you, but I want to bring it up again because I really did love it, is Rory's nonchalant phone call with Ethan. Why are you asking him about the math homework when his car just attacked somebody? But Slay can go off because that's so Rory. It's so Rory, it's a Slay. Number 5, Erica helping Sarah when she is farting because she drank too much blood. This happens in episode 4, Flushed, and I think, like I said in my favorite things about season 1, they have a really good friendship, and I think this shows very well. She hides it from everybody, even the boys, instead of like throwing Sarah under the bus, which she does reveal later, but at first she's like, I don't smell anything. What's that? It's nothing. And I think that's a slay. You're a good friend, Erica. Point 6, in episode 4, Flushed, when the boys go down to the basement, they just have flashlights in their bag. No real reason. They just pull out flashlights, and they already have them. Number 7 is that in this season, we acknowledge that all of them are different nerds. Rory, Benny, and Ethan are constantly called nerds, but there is some point when, and it's in episode 4 in Flushed, when Benny references that Erica is in fact a nerd herself because she corrects their chemistry when they're like mixing the stuff together to blow up the alligator. And then Sarah, I think she gets called like a dusk nerd at some point, or we just acknowledge that she is nerdy because she's hanging out with nerds and she makes nerd references after season 1. Number 7, and this is a point from season 1 too, but I noticed it more in season 2, is that they reuse the music that they used in the movie. So besides the theme song, I think there's the party scene in the first movie. That song gets reused in the party scene in Flushed. And then there's another point where the song that plays when Ethan first sees Sarah at his house in the movie is played at another point, and I'm trying so desperately hard to remember when that point was, and I think it was the point when Ethan, Benny, and Rory are walking out wearing their crocodile uniforms in Flushed. I just love, they said, we paid the rights, so we're going to use this music as much as we want. Number 9, the 80s and 90s slang. They use it randomly. I think at one point they used as if. They used some other things, and I just thought that was really cute, and I think that shows a lot of who was in the writer's room. But they were also probably growing up in the 90s, so they probably used that. But I thought that was a super slay. And then for the last point, I wrote that Ethan and Erica have an interaction at a moment that I am obsessed with because it's just so natural and casual. Slay in episode 9. What the fuck is episode 9? Oh, I remember it now. Okay, so so for number 11, I have an interaction that happened in episode 9, which is Siren Song. Ethan, Sarah, and Erica are all at Ethan's locker, and they're talking, and Sarah's listening to music, so she can't hear what they're saying, and it's just the most casual conversation between Erica and Ethan, and I loved it so much because this never would have happened in the past season, and I think it just shows how much their friendship has grown, especially since in the first episode she called him about Dusk. I thought that was super slay. And now to tack on to the end of season 2, this is things I would have loved to see overall. I would have loved to see Ethan and Sarah try again, which, like I said earlier, the writers basically confirmed that Ethan and Sarah would have paid off had we gotten a season 3, so we would have seen them try again. Because I feel that in the finale, both of them expressed how much they wanted to try again. Sarah even says at some point, this second date is way much better. It's more our speed because they're, like, fighting off Principal Stern. Like, I would have loved to see them try again. I would have loved to see some sort of payoff. I would have loved to see them try again with a date that's like decent and then realize that maybe they're just better off as friends or it goes into a relationship. I would not have liked to have seen it blow up. No, I wouldn't. The second point I have is Benny and Erica maybe. So remember when I mentioned, and I hope I mentioned this, and if I didn't, here's the first time I'm mentioning it. When Erica had some of Benny's blood, it was really appealing to her. I think that kind of shows you that they're kind of meant to be that. And Erica and Benny kind of have these moments where, like, Benny will say, she just made Benny's list. And Erica said, she just made Erica's list. I think they're very much alike. And I think I used to ship them back in the day, so I guess I would have liked to see something. The writers wrote nothing about what this would have been. I looked on the My Babysitter's Vampire Wikia, and nothing was written about it. So I don't know if that was ever in the stars like Sarah and Ethan were, but I would have loved to fucking see it. 3, both Benny and Ethan growing in their abilities. We see a lot of growth from Ethan in the season finale, but I would have loved to see Benny get better at magic entirely. All of the characters becoming more powerful would have been something like really cool, but the fact that we transitioned so fast into Ethan's abilities just like being great all of a sudden was, I get something to build up to look forward to in season 3, but I would have loved to see how he copes with this and how he gets better and how he learns to control it, because even if he has somewhat control over it, I don't think he has complete control. And I would have loved to see Benny get better at magic. Like, come on, 2 whole seasons of him being shitty at magic. Give him something. Number 4, I would have loved more Rory. More Rory entirely. We got a lot more of him in season 2, but just more. More. And apparently, so I was looking on the Wikia, apparently one of the episodes in season 3 was named after Rory, so I guess it would have been Rorri'd Center, but we'll never know because we never got it. So, and then for the last point, and I have this like with a question mark in quotations, Sarah possibly becoming human. So why I say this is because realistically, if the Lucifractor is supposed to wipe out every vampire in the vicinity of its magic, Sarah would have been wiped out, and it would have been interesting to see like when Stern turned the Lucifractor against her, that it took the part of her that was vampire out of her and then just made her a human so she could have survived the blast. Or we would have spent all of season 3 kind of finding a cure, and then eventually Sarah becomes a human again, and either she struggles with becoming human again, or she's happy and she gets to live her life, and her and Ethan can go off in the sunset and have a good time. Thank you for watching my video essay. It has taken me many months to get here to this complete status. I wanted to do this for a really long time. I've wanted to do a video essay for a couple of months now. Ask My Friend Talia. It's something I literally talked about forever. And I didn't feel comfortable doing a show that I didn't know. And then one day I was like, but I love My Babysitter's a Vampire, so let me talk about it. This comes from the most genuine place of love for the show. Mine just comes from a place of absolute obsession, absolute love. Like, literally, I bought a sweatshirt. I custom embroidered a sweatshirt. I'll link the shop down below. If you want to go support them, please go support them. I've had this in my collection for years. I literally was devastated when I thought I lost the movie years ago. I have it. It's on my wall in the basement. I love everything about this show, and I've absolutely loved being able to rewatch it and rewatch the movie and realize why I love it. Rewatch the first season and realize why I love it. Rewatch the second season and learn to love it because I used to hate it, and now I absolutely adore it and probably could watch it 10 million times over. And I hope you guys genuinely enjoyed the video. It's taken a long time to get here, and it's from the biggest place of love, and I'm so excited that now it's in your hands and it's yours and you get to watch it as many times as you want. Please stay tuned. I have other plans that I want to do with this channel. I loved doing this. I want to do more videos like this one. I have so many ideas of videos I want to do, and I already know, like, I literally think as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to start typing up my next script for something else because I just love this. If you enjoyed, please like, please subscribe, please share if you feel like it. Don't feel obligated, but please share. And thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.